Okay, so imagine this. You're living your entire life underground. Everything you know, everyone you talk to, it's all contained within this, like, massive vertical city, buried deep. And you're told to surface. Toxic. Deadly. You can't go up there. But what if? What if the whole reason you're down there was, well, a lie? Orchestrated maybe by the very people who built your shelter.
Yeah, it's a really chilling idea, isn't it? And that's basically the foundation, the core of the Silo Saga. This pretty compelling dystopian sci-fi series we're going to dive into today.
Right.
We've been looking through a summary that really lays out the main story, the big themes, and the characters who drive it all.
Right. And our goal here today is really to kind of navigate that summary together. Right. We want to pull out the biggest insights for you, give you a solid grasp of what makes this whole saga so gripping.
Yeah, the essentials.
Exactly. Highlighting the crucial stuff without getting totally bogged down in, every single detail across what the summary covers,
Great.
Which is basically 3 whole books worth of story.
Think of it as your essential briefing on this underground world and the secrets it's hiding.
Perfect. So let's set the scene a bit. Our source material, this summary, it starts with the basics. Humanity is surviving in these huge underground bunkers, silos,
right,
after some kind of global disaster.
Right, but the key thing right off the bat from the summary is that this wasn't just like people running from a disaster. This whole world, the silo world, it was created on purpose. Yeah, it was part of a secret plan put into motion way before the surface supposedly became unlivable.
Okay, hang on. Let's unpack that origin story, because that sounds pretty wild. The summary puts the start of this around, what, 2049?
Yeah, around then.
And the world up top is already kind of unstable, apparently largely because of nanotechnology. These tiny robots may be designed for good things initially.
Presumably. But they'd clearly become dangerous.
Yeah.
Really dangerous. And so, sensing this collapse coming, you've got Senator Paul Thurman and an architect, Donald M. Kendall. They come up with this plan, Operation 50, build these massive sealed underground silos.
Right. Sounds like a sensible contingency plan on the surface. Save humanity.
Exactly. But here's the twist the summary reveals. It says very clearly that Thurman secretly orchestrates the catastrophe, the very disaster that forces people into his silos.
Wait, he causes it?
That's what the summary states. He didn't just react to a future threat, he actively created the need for his own solution.
Wow. Okay, that changes everything.
It absolutely does. It flips the whole narrative, right? The silos aren't just shelters. They're part of this huge, chillingly proactive scheme, and it immediately makes you question Thurman. What was he thinking? Was it some kind of, I don't know, twisted altruism, like save a future humanity by destroying the present one?
Or just power. Yeah,
control.
And that level of control, planning not just the solution, but the problem.
Yeah.
That seems baked into the society that grows inside these silos over the decades.
Yeah.
The summary describes life underground as becoming super-structured, rigid hierarchies.
Oh, yeah. Strict class systems, where you live determines your life. And surveillance, constant pervasive surveillance, eyes everywhere.
And this is the part that really gets me, that the summary highlights. Using mind control. Specifically mentioning memory-erasing drugs. That feels like that's the ultimate control, right?
It really is.
Not just controlling what you do, but who you are, your memories, your history.
It's an incredibly powerful tool if you're running an authoritarian regime. Think about it if you can just erase dissent or erase trauma or just wipe memories that don't fit the official story.
You get a compliant population.
Exactly. Easier to manage. And Silo 1, the main one, the one in charge, they clearly use this. The summary says they keep power through fear, through misinformation, and always having that ultimate threat hanging over the other silos.
Which is?
The toxic gas protocols. Basically the ability to just exterminate another silo if it steps out of line.
Jeez. That sounds absolutely terrifying, suffocating. But even with all that, the summary does mention resistance, seeds of it anyway.
Right.
People living like that, eventually someone's going to start asking questions,
right,
pushing back. The summary mentions rebellions happening.
Yeah.
Followed by, brutal purges.
Yeah, the human drive for, truth, freedom. It's incredibly hard to completely stamp out, even underground, even with memory drugs. These cycles of questioning, then suppression, they're really key moments. Individuals start looking for the cracks in the official story.
And this is where certain characters become really important, the ones who start uncovering the real history. The summary points specifically to Juliet Nichols. Starts out as just a mechanic, way down in Silo 18.
Right. And then there's Solo, the only survivor from Silo 17, which went dark.
Okay.
These two become central. Juliet, she's this kind of outsider who starts asking the questions nobody else wants to ask, and she's just incredibly stubborn, tenacious.
And Solo, he's literally survived whatever happened to Silo 17. He must have information, right, about the outside. Stuff the people in charge desperately want kept secret.
Exactly. So their journeys are really about piecing together these fragments of truth, trying to figure out what's really going on.
Which I guess leads us to the big one. The central reveal the summary talks about, the mind-blowing part. Apparently the silos weren't built to house all 50 of them forever.
Yeah.
Not even just as a mass panic room situation.
No. This is where the sheer cynicism of Operation 50 really lands. The big reveal, according to the summary, is that the whole plan was always to use the silos as sort of holding pens.
Holding pens.
Yeah. Preserving genetic material, knowledge, sure. But the actual goal, for only one silo to eventually survive, centuries later, and then emerge onto a surface that had been cleansed.
Only one silo out of 50.
That's the plan described. It just completely reframes everything. It wasn't about saving humanity as a whole. It was this brutal, long game plan for a select few. Maybe the descendants of the architects, maybe just one chosen group.
And the other 49 silos.
Essentially, yeah, part of a grand experiment. Or maybe just a resource pool. Disposable once they'd served their purpose in the long run.
Wow. And the surface being cleansed. You have to assume that's connected to the nanotechnology disaster Thurman supposedly started.
It seems likely, doesn't it? He creates the problem, waits for it to maybe burn itself out or cleanse the surface over centuries while his chosen few wait underground. The level of long-range thinking and, frankly, ruthlessness, it's just staggering.
It really is. And brings you back to Thurman's motives.
Yeah.
Was this some twisted, necessary evil for the survival of some humans, or just absolute power for his own faction?
That moral gray area, that ambiguity, it really runs through the key characters the summary brings up. You mentioned Donald M. Kendall, the architect.
Yeah.
He designed the physical structures, but the summary hints he becomes maybe more reluctant, perhaps disillusioned when he realized the darker side of Operation 50.
Then there's Senator Thurman himself, the mastermind. The summary really flags his motives as blurry. Like, is it this cold, calculating altruism for a future race, or is it just pure tyranny, wanting to control everything?
It's a fascinating question. And then Juliet Nichols, who we often see things through, she represents that drive, to question, to find the truth, to fight back, even when the odds are completely stacked against her.
And Solo, this keeper of forbidden knowledge. A living ghost, almost, whose existence threatens the entire system's lies.
Right. And the summary also mentions figures like Victor, an early rebel, whose death kind of becomes a spark, fueling later resistance. So it's not just simple good versus evil, especially at the top. There's complexity there, especially with Thurman.
Yeah, definitely. Thinking about all this, the world, the characters, it really brings some powerful ideas to the surface, doesn't it? This is where looking at the themes, like the summary lays them out, gets really interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, beyond just the plot beats, these themes are why the story sticks with you, I think, why it feels relevant. Take the obvious one. Control versus freedom.
Yeah, you can't miss that one. It's extreme authoritarianism. Constant watching, information lockdown. People literally don't know their own history accurately.
Right. It's a society engineered for total compliance. And the story explores how resistance even happens in that environment. Sometimes it's quiet, like sharing forbidden information. Sometimes it's outright rebellion. And the cost of fighting for any autonomy is huge.
It really makes you think about that balance, security versus liberty. How much freedom are you willing to give up?
Which ties right into the next big theme, memory and truth. The summary talks about memory manipulation being a key tool.
That memory drug stuff.
Exactly. Can you actually be free if your whole understanding of reality, your own past, is being curated or even erased for you? The story really digs into the ethics of that. Is it ever okay to erase memory? And it shows the struggle, the danger involved in just trying to uncover the real history, the truth that contradicts the official lies.
In that world, just finding the truth becomes a revolutionary act.
Totally. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about how narratives get controlled or twisted in our own world, maybe just in less drastic ways.
For sure.
And then there's human nature. Despite this engineered society trying to control everything, the summary points out that the basic human flaws, they're still there. Fear, greed, betrayal, all that stuff persists underground.
But on the flip side, the good stuff persists too, right? The summary mentions courage, curiosity,
Hope, Connection, the drive to find meaning. It's not just a bleak story about humanity's worst impulses, it's also about what endures. What keeps people like Juliet going against impossible odds. That resilience is what makes resistance even possible.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And finally, going back to the very beginning, there's the theme of technology gone wrong.
Right, the nanotechnology. Started out presumably for good.
You'd assume so. But it becomes the instrument of global destruction, and maybe even the tool used later to enforce control, or at least part of the reason for the control.
It's that classic warning, isn't it? About science moving faster than our wisdom or ethics.
Precisely. Unchecked advancement. Who controls powerful tech? What are the unforeseen consequences? The story uses it as a really potent cautionary tale. Technology is just a tool. Its impact depends entirely on who's wielding it and why.
So when you look at how the summary assesses the whole saga, it gives it high marks for being gripping, right? High stakes, emotional depth.
Definitely. Thought-provoking, too. Strong characters, layered storytelling that builds suspense really well. It pulls you in. You care about these people fighting this massive system.
And the mystery unfolds layer by layer, which is always satisfying. But the summary does also mention a couple of potential weaknesses. The timeline can get complex, apparently, with multiple viewpoints across the books.
Yeah, it can jump around a bit, which might be tricky for some readers to track perfectly. And let's be honest, the overall tone can be pretty dark,
Yeah.
bleak, even pessimistic at times.
It's a tough world they live in.
No doubt, it's a dark vision of the future. But I think for many, the intensity of that struggle for truth and seeing characters find moments of hope or connection even in that darkness, it outweighs the bleakness and the complexity that's kind of necessary for the reveals to have the impact they do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you can see the connections the summary draws to other big dystopian stories. Things like The Hunger Games, 1984, The Maze Runner.
Absolutely. It fits right into that tradition. Questioning authority, uncovering secrets, individuals against the system, using these fictional worlds to make us think about our own society.
The dangers of unchecked power, technology abuse.
And maybe just societal complacency, too.
Yeah.
Accepting the reality you're handed without asking questions.
So we've done this deep dive, based on the summary, into the Silo Saga. We look at its pretty disturbing origins, this planned catastrophe, weaponized tech, then centuries of life underground, controlled by lies, surveillance, memory wipes.
Right. And then the fight back. The struggle for truth and freedom, sparked by just a few people asking questions, refusing to accept the official story.
It really is a powerful reflection, isn't it?
Yeah.
On those dangers we just talked about, authoritarianism, tech misuse, complacency, it feels like a challenge almost to look at our own world and, question the narratives we're given.
It definitely leaves you thinking.
And it leaves you with this really profound question, the same one the characters face, I suppose. If you can only have safety by giving up truth, by giving up freedom,
Yeah.
what are you actually preserving? Is survival worth it if it means living without truth? Something to mull over.